Not many guardsmen survive long enough to become veterans. I wonder why. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the strategy and tactics focused 40k channel where we're all about getting the most out of our forces on the battlefield. Today we'll be continuing in our Astra Militarum datasheet review series, where we've been going through the Guard Codex bit by bit, unit by unit, looking at how best to run our Imperial Guard forces, one model at a time. Today we've reached the Guard Veteran Squad, our elite choice guardsmen that can hit on 3s. In this video we'll take a look at their datasheet, look at any obvious buffs, combos and synergies, and how I would think about running them on the tabletop. In the background, veterans or hardened veterans are Astra Militarum troopers who have survived multiple battles and have become hardened and skilled fighters in the Emperor's name. Such disciplined men are often formed into their own squads and placed with less experienced companies and platoons to lead by example, and to instill their discipline and knowledge in the raw recruits. Many veteran squads are issued with non-standard war gear that just isn't available to the mass ranks of the Imperial Guardsmen, whether it's rare plasma weaponry, heavy flamers, or various captured heavy weapons that have fallen into the hands of the squad over the years. As is so often with the Imperial Guard, there are never enough veterans to deploy to the front lines, and as a rare and finite resource, they are often seen leading the tip of a spearhead into battle, or accomplishing more covert operations not suitable to be trusted to the likes of raw recruits. So let's take a look at the datasheet of these hardened fighters to see what they can do for us on the table. So veterans are an elite choice for Codex Imperial Guard. They'll cost you 5 points a model and you get 10 men in a squad, meaning a squad is 50 points. Each veteran has a very similar profile to the standard guardsman, except they have a ballistic skill of 3+ rather than 4+, and the squad sergeant, the veteran sergeant, has the usual bonus of 2 attacks and leadership 7 rather than 6. The veterans are all armed with a las gun and frag grenades, and the sergeant with a las pistol and frag grenades instead. But unlike the regular guard squad, they have access to a far greater variety of heavy and special weapons. Firstly, each veteran can replace their lasgun with either a shotgun or an autogun. Autoguns have the same profile as a lasgun in every way, except they won't be affected by first rank, second rank fire, so are essentially, from a competitive point of view, completely worthless, and are more of a fun and fluffy upgrade, in case you've converted some veterans to be modelled that way. The shotgun's a little more interesting. It has a 12-inch range, assault 2, strength 3, AP nothing, damage 1, and when the target's within half range, you add +1 to the weapon's strength. So it's essentially worse than the lasgun at 24 inches because it won't be able to shoot at all. Basically the same as 12-inch range, although again it won't be able to benefit from first rank, second rank fire, and decently better at 6-inch range where that strength 4 should really count. Shotguns don't cost any additional points, so if you think that your veteran squad is going to be right up close, then it could be a fun upgrade to take, but the vast majority of situations the lasgun's going to do a lot better, particularly if you have access to orders. One veteran can take a Vox caster for 5 points. This is the upgrade that allows an 18-inch order range from a company commander that's also by a squad with a Vox caster. In general, I think they're a bit of a waste of points in the Astra Militarum at the moment, unfortunately. In general, it's just better to spend the points on more officers to get more orders in the first place, and just have them follow around the squads that only need to order a little bit more closely. The squad sergeant can take the usual upgrades from either the ranged or melee weapons list. Personally, I tend not to bother with the melee weapons, seeing as it's only guardsmen, and they're really not going to make all that much of an impact with weapon skill 4+ and strength of 3. Besides, the chainsword's really not too bad. An extra attack would be decently good against light infantry, and that costs you nothing. In terms of the sergeant's ranged weapons, both the bolt gun and the plasma pistol could be worth taking depending on what you're using the vet squad for. I'd pretty much always upgrade the las gun to the bolt gun, particularly as your ballistic skill 3+. But if you're planning on getting them within 12-inch range, either with some sort of fancy deployment option, or if they're just advancing into the heart of the enemy, then having another random plasma pistol shot isn't such a bad idea either. 5 points for another ballistic skill 3+ plasma shot is pretty reasonable. Next, one member of the squad can take a heavy flamer for 14 points. It's very cool that they can take a heavy flamer, as it's not an option that's available to the vast majority of the guard, but by buying expensive flamer weapons you are sort of wasting the veteran's main potential, which is their ballistic skill 3+. For me, the flamer weapons tend to be balanced around a guard squad, hitting on 4+, so if you're going to give these guys any decent upgrades, it may as well be weapons that utilise their ballistic skill that you're paying a premium for. That being said, if you're using some sort of a flamer-centric tactic, this is one of the places that you can get the most flamer weapons in one squad with, as you can get 3 flamers and 1 heavy flamer. Talking of special weapons, this is one of the areas where the vet squad really shines, as they can also take 3 of the things. These are the sniper rifle, flamer, grenade launcher, melter gun and plasma gun. And honestly, I think that all of them are pretty decent aside from the flamer. which like the heavy flamer is just wasting their very good 3+ ballistic skill. 2-point sniper rifles are excellent for a backfield veteran squad, allowing them to put down some decently accurate sniper fire at long range, perhaps while one of the other members of the squad blazes away with a heavy weapon. Grenade launchers are only 3 points now, and again you get more bang for your buck here than you would in a standard infantry squad, hitting on 3s. The more expensive options, the melter gun and plasma gun, took a bit of a points bump back in early 8th when guardsmen with plasma and melter guns were some of the scariest things in the whole game. That time certainly seems a long time ago now. Plasma guns are 11 points, whereas their standard ballistic skill 4 plasma gun equivalents are only 7, and melter guns are 14, whereas a ballistic skill 4 melter gun is 10. So they do pay a bit of a premium for these on top of the premium they're already paying for being veterans. Despite that, again, this is one place where you can concentrate a lot of special weapons with decent ballistic skill, and this can be particularly good when you're using orders on the squad or other buffs that affect infantry. Putting down up to 7 plasma shots a turn with 3 plasma guns and a plasma pistol will certainly put a dent in most armoured targets, and it's not really all that expensive at 88 points. Finally, the squad can take a heavy weapon, either a mortar, autocannon, heavy bolter, missile launcher or las cannon. I'm a big fan of any of these in veteran squads. While the special weapons pay the premium for being ballistic skill 3+, none of these do, so it's pretty much worth including them. In particular, that 15-point las cannon is very tempting, seeing as you have the ballistic skill 3+, and a lot of bodies to protect it. So for a 65-point squad to be blazing away with a las cannon pretty much all game long from the back of the field, it seems like a fairly reasonable upgrade to me. So overall, the veteran squad is a guard squad that pays a 10-point premium for ballistic skill 3+, and access to a bunch of extra fancy war gear, mainly their extra 2 special weapon slots. They're far better at dealing damage to enemy units than standard guard infantry, at the cost of being more fragile point for point, as they cost more for the same defensive profile. So let's have a look at some of the many ways that we can get more out of our veteran squads. First of all, if we look at regimental traits, most of them are decently useful. Cadians are great on veteran squads, particularly if you give them the order to reroll all of their failed hits, as hitting on 3s rerolling with a heavy weapon and a bunch of special weapons is absolutely great. They can also benefit very nicely from overlapping fields, as hitting on 2s is great for guard. Kaschan veterans will be decent at shooting and also in melee, and are one of the better targets for the burn them out order if you are set on using flamers for some reason. Phosphorans will be able to have additional range on their weapons, which could be particularly handy for things like plasma guns or sniper rifles, and being able to access the +1 to hit stratagem is great for avoiding overcharged plasma deaths. Talon veterans can potentially outflank with their stratagem, which is very handy for bringing in a whole bunch of plasma guns or other special weapons from off the board. Steel Legion veterans or disciplined shooters from the new custom guard regiments can rapid fire at 18 inches, which certainly makes the plasma gun look a lot more viable. Valhallans will have some better leadership, and Mordians will have better overwatch, and their form firing squad order can actually be quite good on veterans with plasma guns. As we mentioned earlier, veterans are very good in terms of being able to receive orders with a big squad with multiple accurate special weapons. Take aim to reroll 1s can be great when dishing out massed special weapon or heavy weapon fire. First rank, second rank will always help out las guns, and things like Forward for the Emperor could be handy as well to get some shooting out of them even when they advance. Other than officers, plenty of infantry characters can benefit them. They could get rerolls from Harker or Yarrick, potentially take psychic defensive buffs from astropaths, and their leadership could be kept around by commissars as well. One particular relic that's almost made for a veteran squad is the Dagger of Two Sark. This one can be given to an infantry officer and allow them to outflank with that officer, meaning that you could turn up with a bunch of plasma guns and maybe a heavy weapon in tow, and get one very nasty alpha strike on an enemy unit that's loitering too close to the board edges, and the officer can order them to further increase that damage output. Veteran squads have better synergy than most going in Chimeras, Tauroxes and Valkyries or any other transport vehicles you have access to, as they're likely to be carrying around a bunch of specialist kit. Having them shot out in the open isn't the best, so having them safe behind a slab of armour until they at least get one good round of shooting off isn't such a bad idea. Valkyries can drop them in for a nasty plasma and melter alpha strike, and Chimeras could also keep them safe until they're ready to jump out and fry some bad guys. To help with this kind of a strategy, there's also the Emperor's Blade Assault Company, which can affect Chimeras, Tauroxes and veterans. The biggest advantage for mechanised veterans in this formation is the rapid redeploy stratagem, which means they can potentially get into a Chimera, the Chimera can move, then they can get out and still shoot, which could get them decently closer to their intended targets. It also has a couple of other advantages, such as the mechanized fire support stratagem, allowing chimeras and tauroxes to overwatch better when the squad is charged. In terms of other stratagems, as a powerful infantry unit, the veterans have quite a lot of options. Grenadiers could be used to throw a ton of frag grenades at the enemy if it's going to be more useful than using your special weapons. Inspired tactics might be able to get them an order where they couldn't otherwise have one. Take cover could be used to increase their armor save, which could be handy as they're quite likely to be targeted first due to their increased ballistic skill and damage output. And fight to the death could be used to keep a last plasma gunner or special weapon bearer around. From the new Greater Good book, we also have Experienced Eye, which is a unique stratagem for only veteran squads. This one, when they shoot, increases their AP by -1 on all the weapons that they're firing with, which is actually a pretty decent buff, particularly so with any of their low AP weapons, such as lasguns or flamers for example, but certainly is no slouch either by getting a plasma gun to AP -4 to shear straight through any 3-up armor saves with no resistance at all. So how would I actually use veteran squads on the tabletop then? I honestly think there's quite a lot of decent viable ways to run veteran squads. Firstly, if you're going for a really infantry heavy list, you might well be running out of troop slots in your main battalions, and they can be used just essentially as more infantry squads, where you're a bit more likely to buy special or heavy weapons for to take advantage of that increased ballistic skill. You can use them as backfield damage dealers. They can also hold your backfield objectives, perhaps give the squad 3 sniper rifles and a las cannon, and let them go to town on enemy characters and heavy tanks, while being reasonably durable point for point and hard to shift off objectives. You could use them as midfield cheap infantry with better fire support, maybe give them 3 grenade launchers and a bolter. They'll deal a lot more damage than your standard guard squads, and if they get gunned down, that's still only 60 points down the drain. You could try and drop them with a bunch of plasma or melter weapons. For me, plasma is personally my favourite out of the two. Either chuck them out of a Valkyrie, get them out of a Chimera, or use either the Talon stratagem or the Dagger of Two Sark to outflank them near to the enemy to get that plasma in range for at least 1 blistering volley, and then if they happen to survive for any further firepower after that, then it's a bonus. Finally, you can go full on mech vet, take a whole bunch of veterandom special weapon squads and things in chimeras and tauroxes, pick up the Emperor's Blade Assault Company, and have a flexible and mobile armoured column that should be able to get some nice plasma shots on the enemy, while being reasonably durable and irritating to shift point for point. Admittedly, with this strategy though, you won't have quite as much hitting power as just investing it in cheap guardsman screens and heavy tank firepower, but having a lot of infantry in the midfield and decent mobility certainly are good advantages. So lots of options there. In general, I do feel that veterans are somewhat of a luxury unit, with the increased cost of their special weapons, on top of the extra 10 points that you pay per squad, as well as being fairly fragile. You don't see them used anywhere near as commonly as you do infantry squads, who also fill out the troops' choices for battalions as well. As you can typically only take 3 of them in match play games with the rule of 3, they're never going to be the biggest part of your battle line. Basically the challenge you have when you're using veteran squads is to allow them to keep on doing damage for a turn or two, without your opponent being able to trivially remove them, as is often quite easy for the standard guard squad, so they are a bit more of a skilled unit to use, just because they have reasonably high damage output but a relatively fragile point for point if you load them up with guns. Overall, I'd say they're one of the Astra Militarum's moderately competitive units, not as strong as some of the other options in the codex, but they certainly do things that a lot of units can't do, in particular combos with loads of special weapons, a fair few bodies, and all of our good options with infantry and orders. I think they're a really fun, flexible unit, and I'm glad that they're still available in the book, despite Games Workshop not actually selling an official veteran squad. They've somehow survived the no model, no rules cull that seems to have taken place in a lot of 8th edition, and I'm glad that they've been a bit more lenient on these guys. Let me know any of your own applications for veterans down in the comments below. I do like the way that they've got quite a lot of potential nice edge case competitive uses, and if you can think of any more, then please let me know. I'll be continuing with the Guard series in the next video. Hopefully we'll have a comparison of Manticores and Basilisks coming out sometime in the next week, so feel free to stick around and subscribe to Auspex Tactics if you'd like to see that. If you'd like to support the channel for all of the videos that we've been making recently, I do have a Patreon page down in the description below. Making all of these videos does take quite a lot of time, and I'd really like to be getting to do this as a bit more of my full-time job, as opposed to just as and when, and Patreon is one of the main things that lets me support that. So if you would like to see the videos keep on coming, then any support is much appreciated. Thanks very much for listening. I'll hope to see you guys next time.